Welcome back to CryptoKai. Today we're going to look at how you can create your own on-chain portfolios using TokenSets. Whether you've been inspired by my YouTube series Dojo Unchained, or maybe you've got your own use case that you've got in mind and you want to create a portfolio to represent that. Let's dive in today. So I'm on the homepage of tokensets.com. To create my own set, you need to follow the Create Portfolio button down here. So you just click this, and that's going to navigate you to a guided flow. You'll be presented with an outline of the process. The first being the all-important token selection. The next is selecting your set name, symbol, and also the starting price of your set. Before finally, the third step is publishing your actual set, so the smart contract, onto Ethereum. So let's walk through these steps in a little more detail. And to do that, I'm going to click this Get Started button to go to the first step. As I've covered in other videos, a set is a deployed smart contract on Ethereum that acts as a 100% collateralized basket of assets that you can manage on chain. So this starting allocation will be what assets your set token represents and needs to obtain within the contract when users invest into the portfolio. And if you want a good primer on how buying and selling actually works on TokenSets, go check out my other video that covers exactly that. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be reproducing a set that I've already created called the CryptoKai Innovation Index. And this index currently is allocated into Index, Rook, and MVI. So I'm going to put those in right now. We've got the search bar here, and I can search the tokens. Now let's put in Rook and then MVI. Now MVI is a cool example actually of how I can include another set within a set, showing the sort of composability of these tokens due to the fact that they're all of an ERC20 standard, which is the same standard that other popular tokens such as Aave, Compound, Uniswap, they're all of this standard. So a set, as long as it has liquidity, it acts in the exact same way, and I can include a set within my actual index. And in this case, the Metaverse Index gives me great exposure to the NFT ecosystem as a whole. Now, obviously, you can also edit the allocations for the assets within your set. You know, I might not be happy here with what it's showing me here, and I want actually around 60% exposure to the index co-op, and then I can click this lock button to lock that allocation in, so then I can focus on the other two. Maybe Rook I want just 30%, and then the Metaverse Index more around 10%. Now obviously if I was doing this seriously, you know, there might be a bit more thought process around the sort of starting allocation and whatnot, but this is just an example. Before we carry on from this step though, what I do want to highlight is that when you're creating your own set, there are some things you have to bear in mind when you're selecting tokens to include within your set. There are some constraints. Now, TokenSets is not opinionated in whether you want to include this sort of blue chip, high market cap, premium DeFi tokens, or tiny small cap tokens that no one has ever heard of, and you're on to the next best thing. You know, TokenSets doesn't care. But the token itself needs to actually be compatible with the protocol. And let's take a quick look on what that means. There's a guide up here, you know, in this big red box, which you should read. There's a set creation guide. If we actually navigate here, it will take us to the documentation. And, you know, reading the documentation is obviously a very uncool thing to do. But, you know, asset management is a pretty sophisticated thing to do. And so I highly recommend actually cluing yourself in to all the ins and out of the protocol itself and the limitations and what you can do. We're just going to focus right now for this video on token selection, and it will tell you some relatively straightforward guidelines that you can follow when confirming that you can include a token that you want to be involved in your set. So for example, it has to be of an ERC20 token. It has to be recognized on this token list. And I think this token list is just what the TokenSets UI uses to display a selection. You shouldn't really have to worry about this unless you've got something super obscure, because there is 4,500 tokens on here and it's always updated. Not a rebasing token. I would follow the link there to describe what a rebasing token is. It's a pretty weird concept where the quantity of how much of the token you actually own is dynamic. It can change based on certain parameters, so you're not actually holding a static amount of a token, and that kind of messes with the smart contract a bit. Then you've got not a token that enforces a transfer fee, and a transfer fee is when you in the actual token contract itself, it's programmed that when a token is sent from A to B, there's some sort of fee associated with that. And I believe this messes with the 100% collateralization aspect of set. And then finally, and the most important one, apart from it being an ERC20 token, is that it must have liquidity actually on a DEX, such as Uniswap or SushiSwap. And a good way to check that, you can check that, it's not hard to do. If you go on CoinGecko, then let's say you want to include a token, let's say in my case, I wanted to include Index, right? I can search it up here, go to the details page, and then navigate to, I believe, the market section here on this tab. Now I'll see where the token is currently liquid and the sort of trading volume associated with it. And I see up here that SushiSwap actually has the most volume associated with Index. So I can click this info button. So we can see on this page a bunch of metrics. All we really care about is to see the pairs associated with the token. Down here, I can see that Index has a liquidity pair against ETH, and there is $1 million worth of liquidity in there. And I'm happy with that. That's fine for what I want to include in the set and the volume I'm transacting. But these are things to bear in mind if you've got, if you're transacting millions of dollars of volume, then slippage might be a big factor there. You need a lot of liquidity to cater for your trades. What I would be looking for to not include a token in the set is if there's obviously no liquidity against ETH or really little liquidity. So those are things to bear in mind. So if we go back to the set creation page, I think we're good to go here. We're going to click the continue button and go on to step 2. This is where we're going to add some metadata to our set. And it's very important to know at this stage that this cannot be changed going forward. So when we deploy the smart contract onto Ethereum, the metadata you add here will be irreversible. So think carefully about what you're doing here. The first kind of field we've got to fill out is the name for our set. And I said that I was going to reproduce a set that I'd already created. So I'm going to call this the CryptoKai Innovation Index. And this is what people are going to identify with my set. So good to name it something that relates to either your brand or what you're doing or what the index is about. Some other examples are the DeFi Pulse Index, made by the guys from DeFi Pulse and Index Cooperative. It's a good name. It represents what it's about. It's an index of DeFi-based tokens, and it even has the brand in it, DeFi Pulse. In my case, CryptoKai Innovation Index, that's what I went with. The symbol for the set is actually your ticker, right? So you know how, Bitcoin, Ethereum, you've got the ticker symbol that is often represented on exchanges, such as Bitcoin's obviously BTC, Ethereum is ETH, and in my case, I'm going to do CKI. The CryptoKai Innovation Index, I'm going to represent my set with a token name of CKI. Now, once that's done, we're going to set a starting price for the set. Now, there's a lot of questions around this, but this starting price is pretty much an arbitrary number that you can pick, and the performance will be measured from that point on based around that initial starting price. Now, to learn more about the starting price, just go onto the documentation. Under the set creation, there's a section around start price and essentially what this number means for the assets inside. And the TLDR is that this number just represents how much of the underlying assets are required to mint one of your set tokens. So if I have a start price of $100, then I need a certain amount of Rook, Index, and MVI to mint one Index token. But if I set my token price to $1,000, you would actually need more Index, Rook, and MVI to mint one CKI token. And that's because the CKI token is essentially worth more. But it's important to remember this is all 100% backed by the assets themselves. So yeah, it's a funny concept to get around. Just have a look at the documentation. We've got 2 examples here that you can just work through to understand the concept. But just know it's a figure that you can set, and it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't affect the sort of investability of your set. It doesn't affect how people can enter and exit your set. It's just an arbitrary starting price. And we're going to go with 100, but you can go with, you could go with 10, 1,000, but I'm just going to stick with the default of 100 here, and we're going to go on to the next step. Okay, so the final step, publishing your set onto the Ethereum blockchain. You'll be faced with this screen where you can double check your allocations here, double check your name, symbol, starting price. It will give you a rough estimate of the transaction fees associated with the transaction to deploy the set. So you have to pay this in Ethereum to deploy your contract, your smart contract, which is the set, onto Ethereum. It's going to give you also a final warning about double checking the sort of liquidity of the tokens that you want to include. Past this point, the actions are irreversible, so you want to get it right this time and do your due diligence on what tokens you're including and just double checking the details for the set. Once you've agreed and you're happy, you can click this button and click publish. And that will open up, you know, in my case, a MetaMask transaction window, which I can confirm the transaction. Or maybe you're using a mobile wallet, just follow the sort of transaction window and confirm the transaction. And once you've done that, there'll be a little waiting period where your set is being deployed onto the blockchain. For this video, we're just going to time skip and pretend I've done this because I'm actually just reproducing the set I've already created. So once the transaction has been confirmed, you can double check on a website like Etherscan just to make sure, and this is the actual transaction associated when I originally created the Cryptocurrency Innovation Index, and I can see it's obviously successful. I can go back to the homepage now, and in the search bar, I can search my token set and see it live on the platform. So here we are, I can see portfolios managed by you, Cryptocurrency Innovation Index. I can click onto this and boom, my set deployed onto Ethereum, publicly visible. And now I can begin the process as a manager of enabling my set to be invested by others, setting up my sort of streaming fee structure, and maybe allocating some capital into it myself. We're going to go through that in a separate video, the actual management side of a set. But just to give you a little heads up, the button on the top right saying manage is actually how you access the management portal. And you won't see that on any other set that you obviously don't have access to. So congratulations if you followed along and you did it yourself. You're now an asset manager on TokenSets using Set Protocol. And it's important to know that the benefits of DeFi asset management is that TokenSets is just a front-end UI built on top of the smart contracts. You will always have access to the underlying smart contracts and you can directly interact with them from anywhere, whether it's programmatically or another UI that you've built, you're free to do so. So you're not constrained by this UI, it's just TokenSets is a really damn good UI for interacting with it. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions around creating sets or managing them, come join our Discord server. I'll leave a link in the description below. I would love to have you. Also, if you want to support the content, just help the YouTube algo out by subscribing to the channel, liking the video. We would love you for it. So thanks a lot, guys, and I'll catch you next time.